One character. No dodging, only parries, no healing at all, not from items, not from skills, and of course, the hardest difficulty. Sounds cool, right? Yeah, it wasn't cool. Because this challenge started with me getting slapped by the first weak enemies, like I had never touched a video game in my life. So today, I'm trying to beat Expedition 33 with only one character, with no dodge, only parries, no heals, and on the hardest difficulty. And trust me, this challenge did not just test my skill, it tested my sanity. At one point I had enemies that with almost no HP left, and somehow I still died. At another point I had almost no HP left, maybe one hit from death, and somehow I still won. This run was like a toxic relationship. It kept hurting me, and I kept coming back. And the best part? I chose Maelle for this. Not the release version of Maelle, the broken monster. No, I picked the patched version. The "we fix her because fun is illegal" version. So question is simple. Can I really beat this game with one character, no healing, no dodge and only parries? Or will this challenge fold me like cheap garden furniture? Let's begin! Before we start I needed to say one thing. I already played this game before, when it first came out. But back then I played on normal difficulty, with no restrictions like a normal human being. This time, a lot of time has passed since release, there were many patches and Maelle is not as broken as she was before. But I still wanted to play as her, because in my first playthrough I did not really use her. So now, it was time. Time to suffer with style. So I set the game to the hardest difficulty, and off we go. For the first few fights, while Maelle is still not available, I have to play solo as Gustav. Later I switch to Maelle. Also, I think there will be one case where the game forces extra party members into my team. But for this challenge I simply skip their turns. This is a true solo run. No help, no backups, no emotional support. Just me, parries and bad decisions. And honestly, I was shocked when I died to the very first mobs. I am serious. The first mobs. That was the moment I felt it. This challenge might actually break me. And this set the mood for the early game. Sometimes I barely survived with maybe 10 HP and moved forward. Other times the enemy had maybe 10 HP left and still killed me. That hurts in a special way. That is not just losing, that's emotional damage with extra steps. Very soon the death counter went up again, and then even more. This was already not easy, and this was only the beginning of the game. So yes, the run started exactly how every great idea starts, with regret. Then came Chromatic Lancelier, and by came, I mean he kicked the door open and ruined my day. Trying to beat him, I died almost 10 more times. This was when I reached the first real boss. And the funny part? I almost beat the boss on the first try. Almost. In challenge runs, almost means nothing. Almost is just a pretty word for go back and suffer again. At that moment I honestly thought it would be much easier to play here with Dune than Gustav. But am I looking for easy? Of course not, sadly. And after dying only 2 more times, I finally beat the boss. At this point my main goal was simple. Get through the water area and unlock Maelle. And then life should become much better. I thought it very nice plan, but it was very wrong plan. Because when I entered the water location, I died 2 times to simplest first enemy there. The first one. Again. At this point I started to doubt that I could finish this challenge at all. Finally I switched to Maelle and immediately died. Absolute cinema. Still I had another important target now. Reach the Gestural Arena. Because there I could get pictos made for solo play, and that would make my life 100 times better. But before that, another problem showed up. Burgeon. I barely killed him. That fight took around 30 minutes and I died about 6 times doing it. Then I died around 4 more times to Chromatic Troubadour before I could move on, reach the boss and leave the area. Funny enough, the boss there went down on the first try. I had almost no big problems with him. The only issue was that I was alone, so I did not always have enough action point to destroy his flowers. Still, first try, which in this run felt less like a victory and more like the game saying relax, I am just saving energy to destroy you later. And now came the main joke of this whole playthrough. I gave all my Lumina to one single Maelle, all of it. Every shiny little bonus went to her. I was already dreaming about how disgusting my combo would become by the end. And of course, the moment the road opened, I ran straight to the Gestural Arena. Around this point I could already feel it. I was getting stronger and fast. Then I cleared the arena and got the Solo Pictus. Gain Rush if fighting alone, gain Powerful if fighting alone, gain Shell if fighting alone, 100% crit chance when fighting alone, and deal 50% more damage if fighting alone. At that moment my Maelle stopped feeling like a character. She became a problem for enemies. I even hit the early damage cap, and after that the Gestural location was basically a speedrun. I flew through it. The character was already becoming very strong, and even their attacks were very easy to parry. After that I followed the story to the tournament and got the weapon I would use probably until the end of the game, Medallum. I upgraded it as much as I could at this point, and now, in general, the fights were going pretty well. But there was one true king of random one-shots, Francois. This man, and then few more times, until I finally managed to hit the timing. Once that clicked, I started deleting most enemies on the first turn and quickly reached the lamp boss. When I got to him, in the first 2 seconds I removed more than half of the first phase HP, so that felt great. But the second phase was not that simple. I missed a few hits, things got messy, I was on very low HP, and somehow I still finished him off. And the best part? I did it on the first try. That felt amazing. Then I got through around a few times by Chromatic Orphan, but after a long fight, around 4 minutes, I finally beat them too. And then I upgraded Sword Ballet. Now we were talking. Now I could deal at least 50,000 damage. And the funny thing is I was using absolutely all my Lumina and still had a lot of Lumina points left in reserve. At this point Maelle was not wearing a build. She was wearing the whole shop. Then I cleared the old battlefield with almost no problems. Most enemies dies in one hit. The only one that gave me a bit of pain was the Chromatic Fire enemy. That took a few tries, but I beat him too. Then came the boss of that era, Duelist. And honestly, this boss was fun. Parrying him felt like dancing. This fight did not feel like panic. It felt like rhythm, like violence, but elegant. Then I reached Monaco, and even there I died a few times. After that I went to Old Lumiere, where I reached Renoir, the boss of that area. And here there was a special problem. The fight starts automatically with several people in the party. But I knew a way around it. I could surrender, remove the extra party members that were forced into my team, and start again. So that is how the solo fight really began. I have to say, the music there is amazing. Absolutely cinema. I lost several times there, but to be fair, losing to that man is not shameful. He really made me sweat. I died a lot. After around 8 deaths, I finally beat that boss. And at that point, he was one of the hardest enemies in the entire run so far. Then came the first Axon. And no, that was not easy either. I died several times there too. Usually I needed 2 or 3 turns to remove the first phase. Sometimes I dealt around 70,000 damage per turn, only from shots and basic attacks. But the second phase was another story. There I kept dying because I could not parry the attacks in time. I kept dying and dying. This was the hardest wall I had met so far, and honestly I did not expect that at all. In a normal playthrough, that boss gave me no real problems. So I never thought he would be such a nightmare in a challenge like this. But finally, by some miracle and a bit of luck, I beat him. And I was so happy that this hell was over. Also, it still felt amazing to give all Lumina to one single Maelle. That part never got old. Then, while going through Cyrene's location, I died around 7 more times. When I reached Cyrene herself, I almost killed her on the first try. I left her one hit away. One hit. That is kind of thing that makes you stare at the screen like it personally insulted you. But then on the third try I finished the job. And compared to the previous section, this was much easier. By now my damage from shots and basic attack could already reach 120k. Yes, basic attacks. At this point the word basic was just lying. By the way, if you're enjoying this madness, hit the like button and subscribe, because I'm clearly giving this game my hands, my sleep schedule and half of my mental health. So hope you can give me one click. Now let's continue to suffering. Before the monolith, I spent some time cleaning the map, beating mini bosses and gathering more powers. But for some reason the enemies that gave me real pain were the chromatic dancers. I tried them around 10 times. Their attacks were not even super hard. I was just dying over and over. And the worst moment was when one dancer had maybe one hit left and I still died. That was brutal. Absolutely brutal. Still, I somehow crawled through with HP for maybe one more hit, and now Maelle had over 300 Lumina points. 300! At this point I was not building a character, I was building a war machine. And if you looked at this Lumina list, basically every useful one was active. That was one of the biggest feelings in the run. Sometimes I could not believe I had come this far with this challenge. One character, no heals and hardest difficulty. And somehow I was still going. It really made me think how often we underestimate ourselves. And honestly, never believed I could do something like this. And then I met him again, Renoir. Last time he was hard, but a lot had changed since then. So maybe now it would be easier? Maybe. And the start looked good. In only 2 turns I beat the first phase, but then I instantly died. So no, it was not easy. There were many attacks and to survive I had to learn them almost perfectly. Very often one mistake meant death right away. And yes, that was my 100th death. Triple digits. A beautiful number. A terrible feeling. 5 more deaths later, I finally killed him. And honestly, this Renoir was not easier at all than the previous one. If anything, I was now truly scared about what came next. What would happen at the painters, at the real Renoir, and most of all, what would happen at Simon. Then came the painters. And what can I say? This was brutal. The fight was long. The price of my mistake was huge. And unlike my first playthrough, where I beat the painters almost immediately and barely felt anything, here I felt everything. The pressure, the tension, that slow fear that grows every minute, because one mistake can erase a long attempt. Honestly, I do not even know how much time I spent on this fight. The death count was not insanely high compared to some other bosses, but the fight itself was so long that it felt like at least 2 hours or even more. But finally I did it. I got lucky, I survived, I won. And the reward was huge. I got the picto that removes the damage cap. Now we were talking. Now things were getting stupid in the best way. After that I started moving around the map, searching for different pictos, leveling up and preparing for Simon. And at some random moment, I did not even notice when it happened. I hit for 10 million damage in one strike. 10 million! From getting bullied by the first enemies to this. By now, my character level was 80. My weapon was upgraded to level 33. And Maelle had around 700 Lumina points, all by herself. Only Maelle, no team, just very angry girl with enough power to start a second sun. Then I went into the Endless Tower and just stepped on everything there. I barely felt resistance. I activated almost all Lumina, entered a fight and boom, 25 million damage. At that point I thought Simon probably would not be a huge problem anymore. But I also knew that in the DLC there would be a much stronger Simon. And I had no idea if even this damage would be enough. And even with all this power, I still managed to die for a few times on the final stage of the tower. That stage was harder than I expected. My death notes there got messy because my brain was also taking damage. But the point is simple. I still died several times before I got it done. Then I logged in, focused up, and finally beat the last stage. Endless Tower cleared. That whole map cleaning phase took a very long time. For you it would be fast, but for me it took around 10 hours. Classic content creator magic. In the end I cleared almost the whole map, including Clea. Only one place remained, Simon. And honestly I was scared to go. Then I remembered something very funny. I had not even finished Act 3 yet. I still had to return to Lumiere and finish the main business there. Of course, by then I was a little overleveled. By a little I mean I was basically bringing a tank to a knife fight. There was an epic battle with Renoir, but at this stage he was no longer a real enemy for me. He was just too weak. Now I was level 92. I had over 800 Lumina points. Almost every Lumina was active. The whole map was cleared. Now I was finally ready for Simon. So I went in. Simon, I'm here, prepare for battle. First hit, 35 million damage, then break, then one more turn after the break, and that was it. I did not even let Simon take a turn. That was insane. I had completely underestimated my own power, but this was not the end. Now we moved to the DLC, and there I did not expect to see such an interesting map. Then I reached Oskio. What a funny character, I really liked him. In fact, I even avoided using my strongest attack right away, just to make the fight a little longer. But at this point in the game, with over 900 Lumina points and basically every Lumina active, even big Oskio could not really stand against me. Still, it was a cool battle, and I even got a funny new animation for Verso. Then I moved on, and wow, these empowered bosses were absolutely crazy. A complete nightmare. My build did not work. I kept getting killed again and again. But I also have to say, it was incredibly interesting. Even with all my overpowered stats, they still gave me a worthy fight. I had almost forgotten what that felt like. The last time I felt that much pressure was when I met the first chromatic enemy. Did not want to suffer on these bosses forever. So after feeling their power, I started looking for ways to improve my build. I experimented with weapons and skills. Thankfully, I did not need to experiment with Lumina because, well, I had basically everything active. That part still makes me laugh. And I think I created a really good build. At one point I was deleting the duelist using only shots, dealing damage that hard to imagine. Then I beat the chromatic lamp master with this build too. It was very quickly. I just shot him down. Sometimes one shot could do 8 million damage. And then came the one enemy I could not beat. Empowered Simon. Not because of damage, not because of my build was weak, but because he can erase the character, no matter how much damage I deal. And if I'm playing only Maelle, and he erases Maelle, then that's it. I could not beat him. And honestly that ending felt right. Because this challenge was never only about winning everything. It was about finding the limit. And I found it. This was a very interesting experience. At the start of the game, it was insanely hard. Especially when I met chromatic enemies. There were also some very painful walls on Renoir and on the painters. Those fights really pushed me. But by Act 3 I had become an absolutely machine. A solo Maelle with endless Lumina, huge damage and enough power to erase almost everything on the first attempt. There were still memorable fights later, like Oskio and the empowered bosses, because they reminded me what struggle feels like. And that is why I loved this run. It changed completely. At first I was prey, later I became the problem. This run started with me dying to weak enemies. It ended with me hitting for tens of millions and not even letting Simon move. That is such a wild transformation. And the biggest thing I take from this challenge is simple. We often underestimate ourselves. I really did not think I could go this far. And still, step by step, death by death, boss by boss, I made it further than I ever expected. Sometimes all it takes is one stupid idea, a lot of suffering, and refusing to quit. So yeah, maybe this challenge broke me a little, but it also showed me something cool. Even when it looks impossible, even when the first mobs are already bullying you, even when your death counter starts looking like a phone number, you can still keep going. And sometimes, much later, you look back and realize, wow, I actually did this. If you enjoy this journey, subscribe to the channel, leave a like and write in the comments which boss looked the most painful to you. And also tell me what challenge I should try next, because apparently I enjoy suffering now. Thanks for watching, and remember, if enemy has 1 HP left, do not celebrate too early. This is exactly when the game starts cooking.